Join me in welcoming to the stage Professor Gordon Waitt.
Thank you, Chris, for that introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. Like many of my colleagues at the University of Wollongong, my research explores what mobilizes people to make particular choices. As a geographer, my interest in arguments thinks about the social and cultural contexts of our decisions, particularly those around leisure, tourism, and the household. Hence, I'm interested in you and the things that you do. I'm interested in what you eat. I'm interested in when you wash your clothes, when you drive your car, and even when you party. You like to think of my research as investigating the messiness of everyday life and how we find ourselves making choices to help juggle the multiple roles and activities in different places. As a geographer exploring the messiness of everyday life, I'm fascinated by arguments that encourage scholars to pay attention to bodily judgments, or what we might call gut reactions. Bodily judgments are when the senses become mechanisms of bodily arousals. That is, the sight, sound, taste, and smell or touch become triggers in our bodies for physiological processes. Bodily judgments are often very difficult to communicate in words. However, we may talk about these as sensations, moods, or emotions, such as that tingle of excitement as you came and anticipated coming to the Big Ideas Festival, or those goosebump moments of encountering someone, that very special person, bursting with pride, pulling away in disgust, and feeling your face burn with shame as you feel you don't fit in. Well established in the geographical literature are arguments that illustrate there's a reciprocal relationship between who and where particular choices are made. Very simply, we shape where we are through our everyday choices, and at the same time, our choices are shaped by where we are and our sense of self. Thinking about our gut reactions suggests that alongside activating particular sets of ideas, our bodily judgments provide important clues about people's sense of belonging to particular social contexts or not. For example, in my research with Bryce Appleby, we were interested in exploring why most households are reluctant to eat kangaroo at home. As you may know, this reluctance is despite industry marketing, scientists, and government policy outlining why, for meat eaters, this is a rational response to climate change, environmental degradation, and high cholesterol diets. Who could resist? From interviewing 40 Wollongong households, we discovered the horrors and the delights of eating kangaroo. Whereas the smells, the tastes, and the textures of roast lamb, chicken, and beef were integral to sustaining homes and being good homemakers for those people who drew on ideas that we termed British cuisine, those of kangaroo meat were often evoked bodily disgust. The smells, taste, and texture of kangaroo corrupted not only what some people understood as edible, but also the place they called home and how they thought about themselves. Yet delight was sometimes voiced by these same people who talked about tucking into a kangaroo steak while on vacation in the Northern Territory. Kangaroo taste helped them belong in the Northern Territory through confirming outback mythology that positions bush tucker as an integral to the real Australia. Now likewise, in my research with Rob Figueroa and Lana McGee, we were interested in gut reactions to help explore the choice to climb Uluru. From interviewing over 50 return visitors, we paid attention to the various sets of ideas that configure this place as home of the Ananu, the heart of the Australian nation, a hub of cosmic energy, and a must-see tourist destination. In addition, we remained alert to how bodily judgments to the touch, sound, sight, and smells provided insights to the visitor's decision to climb or not. Our empirical material suggested the importance of how the dynamics of pride and shame play out in the choice to climb or not. For some visitors who imagine Uluru as a symbolic heart, national pride worked against visitors challenging the decision to climb Uluru. whereas we illustrated how shame triggered by hearing Anu Dreamtime stories, witnessing people climb, and the proximity of the rock opened up what we called moral gateways. Shame made felt the invisible qualities of Indigenous culture and resulted in some visitors rethinking their decision to climb. Think about a time you blushed with shame. It's an almost involuntary bodily reaction that points to how badly you want to fit in, but have failed to live up to the expectations. Bodies in shame are highly reflexive. You have a heightened sense of yourself and the context. It is as if you've been turned inside out. Admitting shame thereby opens up possibilities for mobilizing different choices through offering opportunities to reassess oneself and your connections with others. Finally, in my work with third-year undergraduate students, we are interested in exploring an argument outlined in the literature that many of you will be very familiar with, particularly if you're living with a 20-year-old something. That is, Generation Y wear clothes only once before assigning them to the laundry basket. This ratcheting up of the frequency of times clothes are washed is important, given policies designed to respond to climate change. Through interviewing 30 people living in Wollongong, we investigated the sets of ideas and bodily judgments around when and where clothes are understood to be dirty. Our results provide insight to what we call the geographies of sweat. This is the social context in which touch, sight, and smell of sweat-stained clothes were understood to be a problem or not. Bodily pleasures and disgust were triggered by sweat in different contexts. Disgust was evoked by participants in contexts where they became aware of how their sweat-stained clothes disrupted social or spatial boundaries in relation to particular ideas of cleanliness and smell. Our results suggested that disgust makes it harder for young people, particularly women, to navigate social interactions in certain places, such as the university, nightclubs, work, and public transport. In contrast, for participants in this project, bodily judgments of pleasure triggered by the sight, smell, and touch of sweat-stained clothes underpinned the emotional bonds of parental or shared households. Sweatiness was discussed as important to achieving a sense of togetherness with family, friends, and partners. The touch, smell, and sight of sweat-stained clothes is an integral part of spaces where the body feels at home. As my finishing touch, I'm adding to voices those who are arguing that bodily judgments are integral to help better understand everyday choices that are embedded in social and spatial relationships. This kind of approach is useful for informing social policy. For example, if climate change policymakers are genuinely concerned with the impact of everyday choices on greenhouse gas emissions, our work suggests that while education is important, they would do well to better understand the satisfying and gut-wrenching moments of everyday life. Mobilizing the need to be more sustainable in our everyday practices may not have much to do with the awareness of climate change, but understanding where we feel at home. There is much work to do to explore our gut reactions, how they work alongside ideas mobilizing everyday choices to configure spaces where the body feels at home. Thank you.